Hey guys, Ricky Widmer here from Most Valuable Podcast. You're about to listen to a little bit of our primetime podcast that we recorded this week. Make sure to go to BlogTalkRadio /Most Valuable Podcast for our full-length podcast that you can go ahead and download. I hope you enjoy it. I know me and Brandon did recording it.
All right, and now we're going to get into one of Ricky's favorite teams.
My favorite team. Cannot wait to talk about these guys.
And that, of course, is the Duke Blue Devils, the 16-5, ranked number 21 Blue Devils from Duke. And the reason why we're talking Duke right now is because right now, Ricky, Duke, they're not the Duke team that we've seen, honestly, in the last couple of years. Because right now, about this time, Duke would be making their way into the top 5.
They'd be a solid 2 seed.
If I was going to say, if
solid
not,
2 seed.
You know, one of the top 1, 2, or 3 teams. Mm-hmm. And right now, that's just not happening with Duke. Because why? It's just so many different factors. Grayson Allen has not been that great this season.
You got to start with him.
But he hasn't. But really, he hasn't produced the way that he was able to produce last season. He hasn't been able to do it. Duke has had plenty of injuries. They get Emil Jefferson back, but even him coming back from injury has not fully helped the Duke Blue Devils. Luke Kennard is leading them in scoring, but they have had...
He saved them this past weekend. Saved them.
They just squeaked by Wake Forest. It has not been good for Duke, on or especially off the court. Mm-hmm. When you have your head coach bring all the players over to his house and then tell them that you are not allowed to go in the locker room or to wear your Duke jersey until you can respect it, that is no bueno from my angle.
I like that, though, from Coach K. I like that kind of little angle, though, because it kind of puts a lot of emphasis on the team of, like, you know what? Being at Duke is a privilege, not a right. And you are not earning the privilege of wearing that jersey. And another player that I want to mention that didn't play until, December 19th because of injury. And since coming back from that injury has not been what we've expected in Harry Giles. So that's another player coming in, another freshman that we thought was going to help bring this Duke team, keep this Duke team back at the top. And right now, looking at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, Duke is they're a 5th seed. So they're on the same tier as the other 5 teams in Florida, Notre Dame, who they're playing right now as we're recording this podcast, and Maryland. And to me, the biggest thing with this Duke team, and this is what I feel, is that last year, I know that the big thing on ESPN is always Duke doomed without a point guard. And I kind of think, well, is it the point guard thing? Or is it that does this team have a for sure leader? We all thought that that'd be Grayson Allen this year, entering, his junior season this year. And to me, he hasn't really been a leader because obviously we've seen it. The trip of Santa Ana for Elon. Then we had you could call it what you may, but when he jumped for that loose ball and kind of pushed the Florida State coach, then there's and this is to me the one where I think people might have lost their level head and it was nothing to write home about, was when he got tangled up with that NC State player when he's kind of walking through and they're huddling and then they kind of get tangled together and kind of push away from each other. I thought that was just 2 guys. That was the NC State player trying to see, hey, if I can get under his skin, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Because I know up here he's not calm, cool, and collect. So I can get under his skin. So he hasn't really been the leader of this team. Last year, to me, this team had, it helps when you've got Brandon Ingram, who's now playing in the NBA. But this team, to me, doesn't have that for sure leader like Jahlil Okafor and Winslow 2 years ago. Also, you can't forget when Rasheed Solomon was already on that team. Tyus Jones as well. These are guys that, that was just 1 year. That was the 2014-15 season That was when they won the whole thing. Jabari Parker, Rodney Hood. These are guys that weren't just, to me, good players, the top players of that team, but they were also leaders. And I mean, like last year, I mentioned Brandon Ingram, and this year I just think that this team doesn't have that leader. Because I think back to with Grayson Allen, I mean, when I think of his level-headedness or lack thereof of level-headedness, I think of very much of comparing that to a old Duke player. He's currently the head coach of Arizona State. You know who I'm talking about? You know who I'm going to bring up? Bobby Hurley. I think about that because Bobby Hurley was kind of that same player of, you could look at him and see if he was in the same situation Grayson Allen is, he could also let his emotions get to him. The good thing for Bobby Hurley, though, he had the most hated player in Duke history, Christian Laettner, to kind of keep him in control. Bobby's not going to hate the other team because he's going to hate me. All of his hatred is going to be focused on me. That's what I get. Whenever I watch the old documentaries, when they talk about that Duke team, I think of what would Bobby Hurley be like those years without Christian Laettner. Like, really, to me, Christian Laettner was a good thing for Bobby Hurley, because what would his emotions have done if he didn't have Christian Laettner constantly kind of pushing him, kind of like that older brother, like kind of poking you, saying, I'm better than you, trying to get you going. That's the thing with this team. They don't have a leader, and we all thought Grayson Allen would mature and be that leader.
So, Ricky, let me pose the question to you then. Mm-hmm. Do you think that for the factors that I brought up, for the factors that you brought up, do you think that this Duke team is doomed down the stretch and doomed for the tournament? Or do you think that this Duke team is doing, in a just cynical, sickening way, doing this, going about this, and in the back of their minds going, hey, we are going to come out, we are going to surprise people because we're not going to be on people's radars. They're going to have us written off because of how we were this season. We're going to come out and we're going to run the tables in the tournament. What do you think?
I kind of lean towards the gloom and doom kind of aspect of it. And my main reason why is because if we look at the bracket I'm just going to look at the ACC tournament right now. If you're unfamiliar, this is how the ACC conference tournament is set up. It's much similar to the Big Ten tournament, where if you are a top 4 seed, you get a 2-day bye. So you're not playing until Thursday, March 9th is your first game of that tournament. If you are seeds 8, 9, 5, 7, and 6, so basically 6 through 9, then you get a 1-day bye. You're not playing until that Wednesday. But if you are 10 and below, you have to basically play from Tuesday and win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games just to win the ACC conference tournament. And the one thing I think of is, does Duke need to win that tournament to get in? No. But there's a lot of good competition in the ACC this year. And if I look at this bracket and kind of look where teams are right now, and this is while we are still in obviously the Duke Notre Dame game might change this a little bit, but how it would be right now is your teams getting the 2-day byes: North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, and Louisville. Those are your teams getting the 4 byes. Then if we go the rest, so 5 through 9, at 5, we've got Notre Dame. At 6, we've got Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech's at 7. Syracuse is at 8. Duke just squeaks in at 9. Then it's Miami, NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, Boston College, and Pitt are playing the rest of the day 1 games. Right now, they're on the fringe and maybe playing that first day, I should say, for the ACC tournament. That's unheard of. Duke teams, in our mind, it's one of those, they're going to be 2-day bye. Them, North Carolina, maybe even top 2 seeds in the conference tournament. Hasn't been like that this season. So not only will they have to make a run in the conference tournament, but they're going to have to make a run in the actual tournament. And when we get to that point, I think of the mindset of, here's the devil's advocate to my doom and gloom answer.
Is it a blue devil's advocate?
It could be a blue devil's advocate. I like that pun. But the thing is, Sean brought this up to me this weekend. What are we usually used to with Duke teams? They either lose in the first 2 rounds of late or they go on and win the whole thing. Well, maybe this year, because they're a 5, maybe 4 if they can move up, maybe that creates an easier road. Now, I know what you're thinking, Ricky. The bracket is really set up to give 1 and 2s the easiest road to the tournament, but in recent histories, how many times have we seen the 2 seed upset in this bracket, and really 1 seeds the majority of time make it to the Sweet 16 in the regionals? But I don't know. I don't think they're going to make a run this year. Right now, I wouldn't say they make a run, because if we're using Joe Lunardi as of right now, you know who they would most likely play in the second round of the tournament in the South region? UCLA. Because I'm going to say UCLA can beat New Mexico State. There's no way this Duke team beats UCLA. So it's that kind of what team are they going to run into in the tournament? I kind of want to say I'd write them off at this point. I wouldn't put them in the national championship, not even in the Final Four, maybe not even in the regionals.
Duke has 5 losses on the season. 4 of those 5 losses have been within their conference. Mm-hmm. So you talk about that ACC conference tournament. That's going to be difficult for Duke, I think.
They might not even run the table.
Because of the fact that they have struggled. They have stunk. They have straight out been not good at all within their conference so far this season. And now moving down the stretch, they've got Notre Dame tonight, which at this point, with just about 6 minutes left to go in that second half, Duke leads Notre Dame by 1. They've got North Carolina coming up next Thursday.
It was a 10-point lead when we started this half, by the way, or this segment, by the way.
They've got North Carolina coming up next Thursday at home. They've got Virginia then a couple of days after that on the 15th on the road at Virginia. And then they've got Florida State. And then on the road at North Carolina to end the season.
That's how you end it.
And they've already lost to Florida State. And they've just really struggled. They've really struggled this season, and I haven't ever seen anything like it with a Duke team, especially within their conference. They have been so shaky. And Ricky, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to have to do other than get better.
Well, and
to really get this team going.
The one thing I want to say, and this is the thing I thought of when you mentioned their out of conference schedule, their non-conference, they only lost 1 game. Look at the big opponents they played. Yeah, they beat number 21 Florida, which you can see that's a respectable win at that time. But look at the other big opponents they played. They beat Michigan State. Michigan State is not the same team that we're used to seeing from Tom Izzo and the boys. They beat a Rhode Island team that was ranked preseason, but nowhere near the top 25 right now. A Penn State team that is usually at the bottom, playing usually that first or second day in the Big Ten tournament, and then they lost by 2 to Kansas. So it's one
you
of
have
those
to give them
things
credit for that one. Obviously.
Well, I mean, you give them credit, but you still lost.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, third game of the season, you're playing a really good Kansas team, a team that's better than you, and you only lose by 2 to them, so you keep it close.
And the other thing I want to mention is all their non-conference games. What was the last non-conference game they played, Brandon? Arguably the turning moment of this season. They played Elon. What happened during Elon? Can you refresh the listeners and viewers who don't know what happened against Elon?
Was that the third tripping incident?
That was the third. That was when he tripped the Santa Ana, the player from Elon.
That's when he was suspended indefinitely for 1 game.
Well, for 1 game, yeah. He missed he missed the Virginia Tech, then came back against Georgia Tech. So really, you look at it and you go, that tripping incident, and they haven't been the same team since. That's been the turning point of this season. Because they had won, they lost November 15th, they won, and then that next game, they lose. So really, I blame the tripping incident, and I don't think Duke. I would be surprised if Duke made it to the Sweet 16 is 50-50 for me. At this point, I'd be surprised if they even make the Elite Eight. I'd be surprised.
So I know what the title of this Duke video is, but I do have to say I have to come in here and I have to be that guy. I have to be that guy. Duke teams, I just have seen it so much in the past that they find a way. They will mess around for so long, and then they find a way to win the games that they need to win to get to the spot that they need to be successful. So I actually see this Duke team getting a little bit better down the stretch, and I do see them being able to make a bit of a run once they get into the tournament, because they're not missing the tournament.
If they want to win the tournament, of course they're going to make it, but if they want to win the tournament, they're going to need one of their guys, and it's one of the biggest positions that they're missing is the guy I'm going to say they need. They need someone on this team to turn it on conference tournament time and tournament time like Kemba Walker did for UConn. The great Big East tournament where they ran the table, came in as a double-digit seed, ran the table and won it all. That's what Duke needs. They need someone to do that. I don't think they got it.
Well, right now, Duke needs a lot, and one thing that would help them would be a win against Notre Dame. They're playing Notre Dame right now.
Well, thank you guys for checking out this video from the Primetime Podcast. If you want to check out more, click right over here. The video's right over here. Check it out. Check it out.